Does Brock Purdy need to step up now that he's going to be playing teams without Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey? Plus, do the 49ers have a schematic problem on defense that could be an issue all year long? What is good, everybody? Welcome to the Gold Standard Podcast on the Gold Standard and the Fans First Sports Networks. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. He is Levin Black. It is Thursday. It is Rams Week 11. Are you pumped up?
No, I'm pissed off is what I am. Because I'm sick of this. Honestly, the game is the game. It bothers me. You know, it's not until the following Sunday when things are going good that I fully get over just a crap fest of a game. But I'm pissed off because of Deebo Samuel's show. That's really it's sticking under my skin, really bothering me. Him saying that they've been the best team in the league for 5 years now. I want to cuss right now because that's what comes. It's so ridiculous and so tone deaf is the way it comes off to me. To say you are the best team for 5 years when one team has won 3 Super Bowls and in 2 of them they beat you, and they've also beaten you in the regular season every time you faced them in that time span, is so incredibly tone deaf. That would be like the Buffalo Bills of the early 90s sitting here constantly saying, well, we were the best team in the early 90s. No, you weren't. And nobody thinks of them that way because if you don't win the dang Super Bowl, it doesn't matter.
Right. And they lost, 2 of the Super Bowls to the Dallas Cowboys. Was it 2 or 3? I think
it was 3.
Maybe it was 3. Did they lose all of them to the Cowboys? The Cowboys beat the Bills?
It was Cowboys, Niners, Cowboys.
No, I know, but who did the Bills lose to in the 4 straight Super Bowls they went to? Was it always?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Whatever. The point is, the team that you lost to multiple times in the Super Bowl is the best team of that era. That's why they are the best team of that era.
The Cowboys are the team of the 90s decade.
Right. Because they won all the damn Super Bowls. No, the Bills lost to Washington in one of the Super Bowls. They lost to the Giants. I remember that. And then they lost to the Cowboys twice. Okay, so that's what it was. Yeah. Anyway, I saw that, and we'll get to the Brock Purdy stuff in a minute. But since you brought this up, we'll start here. I saw what you said, and I was right there with you, and I said it out with with Grant yesterday, that they got to stop saying this. Even if you believe it, stop friggin' saying it because you don't have the trophies, and the Chiefs never say it because they don't have to say it. But there was another part of the podcast that came out that I just saw this morning that maybe will make you feel slightly better about the situation. Here is the clip from Deebo Samuel's podcast, Cleats and Convos on Bleacher Report.
What is the mentality coming off of last year into this season? Was there any type of change from last year to this year? I mean, I would assume you obviously get hungrier for it every year. The end all be all, the Super Bowl. But what would you guys say your mentality was coming into?
I mean, if I'm looking at it like you just said, for us hungry, I'm full at this point. I'm full at this point. Like, I mean, it's time to really clean the plate. Like, it's either now or never. Like,
right.
That's how I kind of look at it. Like, with the guys that we have, like, I've been a part of, the best team in the NFL for the past going on 6 years.
Yeah.
And so, like, we always there. Like, we got to get it done.
What is the mentality?
Okay. Does that make you feel any better about what he said? Because he basically said we have to get it done. It's now or never.
No, because it's double talking. He's being hypocritical because on one hand, he wants to sit there and say we are the best team in the league for 5 years now, and then on the other hand, he wants to say, "Oh, we're completely full. We can't be any more hungry." You know what teams are starving? The teams that keep getting close and not getting it done, i.e. not the best team in the league, the teams that are still trying to become the best team in the league. And at the same time, what did they say last year? That they started feeling themselves, and that's when they had that 3-game losing streak. What did Kittle just say after this last game? I don't know if you caught it, but he talked about how they weren't quite focused. I can't remember the exact wording, but there was a post-game press conference comment from him that clued you into, oh, they were overconfident coming into this game, thinking that they were just going to avenge last year's loss to Minnesota. It's ridiculous. This team, time and time again, wins and goes, we're so good. We're awesome. And then they get humbled by somebody and they go, oh, we got to refocus. You know, we're the best, so we can't afford losses. You can't keep doing this. Fool me once, you know, it's that same. Like, you are what you are at this point. And at this point, what a lot of opposing fan bases have said about this team, that they're too cocky, that they think they act like they've won a Super Bowl already, are 100% true. This team, I cannot remember, not just a Niners team, any other team in the league that has acted so cocky when they have constantly not gotten the job done. I don't think you get too much of an argument if you want to say the Niners are the most talented team in the league for the past 5 years. I think a lot of people would agree with that because they have so much talent and so many all pros, but then that means you're a bunch of chokers if you keep not getting it done, and maybe you should act more humble.
Vish called them the uncrowned champion, and that is a perfect way to describe it. They act like a champion, even though they haven't won a championship. And no, we're not counting NFC championships. And that's the frustrating thing, right? They keep making the same mistake over again. Bosa said last year, we were feeling ourselves after that Cowboys game. We were 5-0, and then they lost 3 straight. And what did Fred say in the huddle after they finally won again? He said, we learned our lesson, guys, right? Go watch it. You can watch it in the locker room, in the huddle I think it's after the Jags game. He says, we learned our lesson. Apparently not. And I'm sorry, if that is the case, that comes from Kyle Shanahan. That comes from the top of the organization. And what did Kyle tell Tim Kawakami? Oh, well, we should have 2 Super Bowl trophies already. Well, yeah, but you don't. And it's time to stop acting like luck was the only reason you don't have one. It's a part of it, yes. Is it the only reason? Hell no. And that's a mentality that needs to change.
Yeah, Kyle acts like a crowned champion already. He acts like he's won a Super Bowl and should be considered one of the best coaches of all time. He's got that same cocky attitude that doesn't belong. It's ridiculous. And yeah, I do think that Kyle's attitude like that is washing down to the rest of the team, but you still put some of the blame on the players because they're the ones that should be able to sit there and say, no, we're not going to take any opponent for granted. You know, and I think this past week, what they thought, and you saw it some, especially with Lenore's comments, is that they were like, oh, we're playing that quarterback that we were embarrassing in practice all last year. We know who he is. We're going to embarrass him again. And then they got caught.
Bazzyman says that's literally Bill Walsh's philosophy. You have to act like champions before you're champions. That's how you become champions. How do you not know that philosophy? It's one thing to act like champions. I think what Bill Walsh meant was hold yourself to a high standard. Hold yourself accountable. Work hard. That's what Bill Walsh is talking about when he's saying you have to act like champions. It's not, oh, we're the best team. We can just show up and win. Yet time and time again, because they are so talented, they think that they can do that. And time again, they get humbled. And it's like not kicking in. It's very, very frustrating. And I want someone to just bring that up to them. Like, stop saying you're the best team. Why don't you have the trophies if you're the best team? The best team is the one with the damn Lombardis. Like, someone needs to say that to them.
Can I just say, like, not every Bill Walsh saying applies to every single situation. That is something you tell a team, like what he got in San Francisco. He came into a team that had been losing for a long time and lacked confidence. So he had to tell them and have a mantra of act like you're good enough. That's what he needed in that team. That's not the case with this team. This is a team that knows they're good enough, but they keep not getting the job done. You don't need more confidence in this team. You need more humility in this team. It's the opposite. It's a different situation. Just because Bill Walsh said it doesn't mean it applies to this specific situation and team.
And I just, if I'm Kyle, like, my message to the team constantly is we haven't done anything. We haven't done anything. You may think we're the best team in the NFC. Guess what? That doesn't matter. What matters is what happens on the field during the games. That's what matters. And what has happened on the field during the most crucial games for this 49ers team is that they have come up short. Whether it's Kyle's fault, whether it's Brock's fault, Jimmy Garoppolo's fault, the defense's fault, Emmanuel Sanders' fault, Clete Blakeman's fault, or whoever the hell the damn ref was in the 2 Super Bowls, whoever. The point is, what happens on the field is what matters. And they haven't come through, and they got to stop acting like you get a banner just for having the most all-pros or the most Pro Bowlers. You don't.
I know every single team they face, assuming they make the playoffs, will be going and having that clip played to them. Oh, this team thinks they're better than everybody. Go out there and show them that they're not. That is 100% the bulletin board material, especially if they have to face the Chiefs in the Super Bowl again. You know that there's going to be little comments during Super Bowl week if they end up facing each other in the Super Bowl again, alluding to that from Chiefs.
And I wouldn't blame them, frankly. I wouldn't blame them. The Chiefs never have to say we're the best team. Do they ever say that? No. When they were going through it last year and the offense stunk for the Chiefs, did Patrick Mahomes ever get up there and say, I'm the best quarterback in the league? No, he never said that. They just shut up. They did what they needed to do. They got to the playoffs, and they handled their business in the playoffs. So let's see that from this 49ers team. How about a little less, come on my podcast, do this podcast. George Kittle's the brand ambassador for this, and Deebo Samuel's got a podcast, and Fred Warner's got a podcast, and Eric Armstead's got a podcast. How about make the main thing the main thing? Can we do that, please?
I don't really care if somebody has a podcast or not. It depends on how they handle it. Like, just having a podcast by itself is not a problem. Now, what I have with problem with Deebo, and I've thought this since he's been doing his recurring segment with Kay Adams, is act like you want to be there. Don't have this weekly segment or now your own show if you don't want to be there. Every single time he's been on with Kay Adams, and now when he's done the show, he sits there like back, highly defensive state, and just like agitated. Like, you're going to ask me questions and I'm not going to like it, but I'll respond. Like, okay, then stop doing them. If you don't want to do them and you don't trust the media, which clearly I think he falls in line with that, then don't do them. Do what the Kelseys do. Host it yourself. And if you're not talented enough to do that, then don't do one.
I agree with the critique of Deebo that, like, at times he really doesn't seem interested in that. I will say, let's give it more than one episode before we say the show is trash, but they got some work to do. I'll just say that. I didn't mean to go off on a 13-minute rant about that, but you got me all fired up, so I blame you. The main topic I wanted to get into today is Brock Purdy. And because we're all looking at Brock Purdy and the narrative that has started this week, Levin, and it makes no sense to me, but it is clearly here. The narrative is, well, now we'll know if Brock Purdy's a good quarterback because now he doesn't have his weapons. So now we'll see if Brock is really good and he's really worth the contract that supposedly he's going to get. And correct me if I'm wrong, but does Brock Purdy not still have an all-pro tight end? Does he not still have a second-team all-pro wide receiver in Brandon Ayuk? Does he not still have a really good running back in Jordan Mason? Does he not still have the best left tackle in football? And does he not still have the best play caller in the game working with him on Sunday that'll be there on the field in LA? Does he not still have all that? So why are we saying he doesn't have weapons? He's got more weapons than the quarterback he's going to be facing on Sunday.
I think you're concentrating a little too much on being literal. I don't think there's any question that Brock Purdy has had an embarrassment of weapons. He had more talent around him than anybody else. Now, he's still got talent around him. It's not the Chiefs of 2 years ago where, like, literally there's nobody other than Kelsey. It's a situation where, okay, now he's got a normal amount of talent around him.
It's not normal. It's still more than normal.
No, it's not. Look, what do the Cowboys have? They got CeeDee Lamb out there. Maybe the best wide receiver in the league.
They have less than normal.
Who?
The Cowboys have less than normal. Like
I would say they have slightly less than normal, but who does Goff have in Detroit? You look at Seattle, they got multiple weapons. You look at Kyler Murray now in Arizona, he's finally got a weapon. You got a lot of people, generally most teams that have a good offense have an all-pro receiver or running back opposite of a good quarterback. So now he is back to being normal, and it's the first time we get to really see him. All right, this is not an embarrassment of Richmond that he has surrounded by him. He's going to have to be a difference maker by himself. Can he do it when there is the ability of the defense to concentrate on, well, that's the one guy he has, so we're going to take him out. Just like I said, Dallas with CeeDee Lamb. What does every defense come into the Dallas game saying? We got to stop CeeDee Lamb. Can Brandon Ayuk do it? And can Brock Purdy do it when everybody knows what he's going to be trying to do?
Yeah, I just feel like Brock still has plenty out there. There are a ton of
he does, but it's just not. It is a different situation. Like I said, I feel like you're concentrating on the technical thing that they said. And they're saying, oh, now he's got to do it with no talent. They're saying it a little too strongly. Now he's got to do it with a normal amount of talent.
And I think that there are a ton of teams out there that would love to have what the 49ers are going to have out there on Sunday. Tennessee would love to have it. Jacksonville would love to have it. Carolina, of course, because they're the worst team in the league, so they certainly would love to have it. I think the Bears would love to have it. The Giants would love to have it. The Commanders would love to have it. The Broncos would love to have it. I think there are a ton of teams that the 49ers have better talent than right now, even without Deebo and Christian McCaffrey. So to me, this whole narrative that now Brock, like we're going to learn something about Brock Purdy, to me doesn't make any sense because he's still got way more talent than a lot of teams.
How many teams would you say have worse than what they will have this weekend?
Well, I just reeled off a bunch. Denver, the Raiders, I would say definitely. Carolina for sure. Obviously, that goes without saying. Tennessee,
you can ballpark. You don't have to go through every team.
Well, I don't know. A third of the league, maybe 10.
Okay, so what's normal in the middle? That's what I was getting at. I knew you weren't going to sit here and go, oh, I think 26 teams still have worse than the Niners. No, you're sitting here saying basically the Niners are probably somewhere between 10 and 15 ranked. Okay, that's pretty normal. That's right around the middle of the pack.
I just disagree that like if I saw Brock Purdy go and play well, I'm not going to be like, well, now we know for sure he's worth $60 million because he only had George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk and Jordan Mason and Kyle Shanahan and Trent Williams. Like the narrative doesn't make any sense to me. Not that I think that Brock has to do more, but I just disagree with the whole thing that like now we're going to find out some information about Brock that we didn't know.
Well, I disagree on the simple fact of you can't take a small sample size and say, well, now we know.
Well, that's what
I don't care. I know. I don't care what the situation is. You don't go, oh, we ignore those 30 other games that he's played, and it's these 3 games that let us know. No, you look at the whole picture.
But that's what people do with Brock all the time, right?
I know. I agree with you on that part of it, that you can't just sit here and go, oh, this small little window of opportunity now is the only thing that's ever going to matter on whether or not you should pay Brock Purdy.
I mean, all we heard about last year was, yeah, but look at the 3 games they lost in the middle of the season. Forget the rest of the game. Just look at these 3. So that's what people do all the time. Eric Oliver, YouTube channel member, says, sorry, that comment is not the one that I wanted. Oh, man, I had a good comment from somebody who said that Brock doesn't have the Avengers. Now he has the West Coast Avengers.
This next comment that you put up is going to really let us know whether or not you know how to host a podcast on YouTube.
I don't know which comment are you talking about?
I'm just saying whatever comment, the next comment that you put up will really let us know whether or not you're good. The last 6 years of you doing this do not matter. It's this next comment, whatever one it is.
There it is. Jason Captain Niner Massey says we've gone from having the full main Avengers to the West Coast Avengers. That's the comment I wanted to put it up. I appreciate a good comic book deep cut. So thank you. Corey Soto says most good offenses have a number 1 receiver, a solid 2, a good tight end, and a run game. Purdy will have all of that, even Deebo and CMC out. No excuses. Is anyone going to bring up the fact that the Rams are like the walking wounded? Are we even going to I feel like if Brock has a good game, what are people going to say? The people that want to hate on him are going to say, Yeah, but he still had Kittle and Ayuk and Mason. And by the way, the Rams defense is shredded now. Like, it's not like he's going to settle any argument.
Well, let's bring it up. Who did you pick? Because this was a super chat from earlier that during our ranting,
I was getting to it. Don't worry.
Well, it was first in line. So did you pick the Rams earlier? Because Lettuce 49 says, Rob, how are you going to pick the Rams to win this weekend? Because they have the better quarterback. We just saw San Francisco lose to Darnold while we have the better quarterback.
Yeah, I did pick the Rams. I do admit I was definitely in a rage, but I'm going to stick with it since I did pick them. Look, when the 49ers play the way they played, when you allowed a block punt, when you turn the ball over twice, one of which when nobody even touches you, by the way, you throw a hideous interception at your own 10-yard line, and you do the things the 49ers did by converting 1 third down in each half of the football game, you can lose to anybody, whether it's the Rams backups, whether it's the Chiefs or the Panthers. It doesn't matter. When you don't play complimentary football like that, you can lose to anybody.
But if the Rams played complimentary football, no. Like, we'll get into the defense because there are some things there for sure. But if the 49ers lose to a Rams team that's without Kupp, without Puka, without, I think, like 8 other starters that were projected starters coming into training camp, like they have a 2020 49ers level injury list right now, if not worse than the 2020, which was the worst in record at the time. If the Niners lose this game, I'm out. It's over. There's 0% chance if they lose this game. This team is in the Super Bowl hangover. This is not the year, and it's time to scrap and make some key changes to the team.
May I direct you, Levin, to the 2021 season?
No, you may not.
Week 9, November 7th, 2021, to be exact, when the 49ers played the Arizona Cardinals with Colt McCoy at quarterback, with Cliff Kingsbury on the sideline, when the Cardinals had no Kyler, no DeAndre Hopkins, no AJ Green. They lost Chase Edmonds in the first quarter. And what happened? The Cardinals came into Levi's and smashed the 49ers 31-17. It has happened before.
Right. I'm not saying they can't lose this game. What happened in that season? How good were the Niners that year?
In 2021?
Yeah.
They got to the NFC title game.
Oh boy. Were they actually that good?
Well, yeah, they were there.
I would say no.
They didn't gain a positive yard in the last 10 minutes of that game, but they got there.
Right. They had a key flaw that everybody knew they had a key flaw, and it was at the quarterback position. That's where 2021 was.
My point is they have lost these games to shorthanded teams before.
Right.
And
I'm not saying they can't lose. They absolutely could lose this game. I'm just saying if they lose this game, the Super Bowl hangover is real and it's done. Don't get your hopes up about this season.
It's just incredible that they're 1-1. I feel like the feeling right now is that they're 0-2, right? Like they kicked the Jets' ass in week 1.
They lost to Sam freaking Darnold. That's why.
So, okay, let's get to the defense then, because, well, actually, you know what? Before we do that, one last point on Brock that I forgot I wanted to make. Mike Silver has a column right now out about Brock Purdy. And boy, man, is he slurping himself some Brock Purdy in this article. Brock Purdy's the best. Brock Purdy's a top quarterback. And even though Brock Purdy's a top quarterback, we shouldn't expect more out of him without Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey. It's a very weird article because I feel like he talks out of both sides of his mouth, right? You can't tell me Brock Purdy is that guy and he's one of the best young quarterbacks in the league, but we can't expect more from him when 2 of his top playmakers are out. It can't be both. If he's good enough to be considered one of the top quarterbacks, he has to be able to handle the burden that comes when 2 of your guys are out. That's what makes you one of the top guys. If you can't do that, then you can't be considered one of the elite quarterbacks in the league.
You're not wrong.
Levin always says I'm not wrong. He has never said you're right on this show.
That is not true. And I listened to your Friday show and I realized when you were recording with Michelle and you were so worked up, you brought it up to her and she pushed back on you, that I think you take it incorrectly. I don't say it when I disagree with you and I don't want to admit that I'm wrong, you're right. It's when I agree with you. You made a statement, I agree with it. I don't really have anything to add because you said everything I would say. So I just say you're not wrong.
You should say, I agree. That's a great point.
That's why I told you during our show last week, take the compliment, because it's a compliment. It's not me. It's not when we disagree. If we disagree and you've proved me wrong, I will say I'm wrong. It's when we agree and I got nothing to add to the conversation, then I say you're not wrong.
To add to the conversation.
Oh, yeah. That's why you bring me on every single week, because I bring nothing.
Yeah, you're just the pause I need to take a sip of water or something like that. No.
When you do take a sip of water, you always do it right as I'm finishing my statement. You wait until the very end.
That's a total fluke, but that does happen far too often. But yeah, so I disagree with this Silver article, but he had another little thing in here, Levin, that I could not believe. It's right in the beginning of the article. He says, let me see if I can find it now. Here it is. Purdy is already one of the league's best quarterbacks, and he's absolutely ascending. He'll get the bag after the season. Kyle Shanahan decided that long ago, perhaps even before Christmas of 2022. And by then, it will be obvious that he deserves every penny. I went back and looked. Brock Purdy's first start was December 11th of 2022. So if you're telling me that Kyle Shanahan decided after 3 Brock Purdy starts that he was going to get the bag as soon as possible, that's idiotic and reckless by Kyle Shanahan, if that is true. And I don't know if it's true or not. Mike's pretty close with Kyle, so maybe it is. But if that's the case, Shanahan cannot be trusted with quarterback evaluations because that's just dumb.
I think this is a case of somebody putting something a little stronger than what it was. It's not that Kyle said, no matter what, we're going to pay this guy. But it was that he saw him make his first couple starts and he thought, wow, this guy really is it. And I'm going to end up having to pay him. Not that this guy is definitely it. I don't care what happens the rest of the way. We're going to pay him in 2 years, to where he wouldn't have changed his opinion if Brock Purdy suddenly went the Nick Mullins route, where he started out phenomenally and went to crap. It's that he saw him and he goes, wow, I really think this guy is it. I'm going to end up having to pay him.
And that's the way he should have been clearer then, because the way it is in that article comes across as just ridiculous to me. And he points out in the article something that I agree with and that we have said on this show, right? That Brock Purdy's superpower is his processing, is him from the neck up, right? That's what we say is the best thing that Brock Purdy does. So what does it say then, Levin, that when he faced a scheme that was going to require intense processing, he looked shook and he played like crap? Like, that's what the Brian Flores scheme does. They bring a ton of people at the line of scrimmage. They have a lot of people standing up that aren't in a 3-point stance. So you don't know who's coming, who's dropping into coverage, and then what coverage they're in once they drop. Yet that played into the strength of Brock Purdy, which is supposed to be processing. And yet he couldn't process it and he couldn't do it all day long.
Well, I've seen some breakdowns, and Ted Nguyen actually had a really good one where he went back and he showed, like, this is what Minnesota showed Brock last year. And you can see pre-snap, Brock is expecting them to do that again. And then at the snap, they do something completely different, and they take away the route that Brock found success with last year by bringing somebody over out of the way that usually would never, ever be in that spot. That's something that really you can't do anything about. And I think Brock is very good at game prep and knowing the tendencies of the defense and being able to exploit those tendencies. When the defense does stuff they've never done before, no quarterback does well with that. It's in those scenarios, if the play you need to eat and not amplify the damage, and then process what you saw and try to quickly change. All right, they're not going to do what I've seen in film. They're going to do something different. But that's where the best quarterbacks end up making their money, right? I think a lot of the difference is, when the defense does what you expect, a lot of quarterbacks can succeed in it. It's when the play breaks down because the defense did stuff you didn't expect. What can you ad-lib? That's what Mahomes thrives at. That's what Josh Allen thrives at. What do you do when you're ad-libbing? And that's always been a critique of ours with Kyle, that he doesn't like his quarterbacks ad-libbing. It's like, no, that's what makes good quarterbacks, the great quarterbacks, is that they can make something even when the play call is a bad one.
What do you do when you don't know what to do, right? That should have been something that Brock and Kyle discussed, right? Kyle knows Brian Flores' scheme. He knows he switches it up. It should have been, okay, what do we do if we don't know what to do? We can't figure out the coverage, right? Or if somebody misses a block and all of a sudden you're under pressure, if they have an unblocked guy, what do we do then? And it should have been throw the ball away, check the ball down, or what I think it should have been is run. Run with Jordan Mason more and run with Brock more. Just scramble, Brock. And if you gain 2 or 3 yards, that's fine. Like, it's a positive play, and at least we're starting to move in the right direction. There were too many dead plays, too many plays of first down incompletion or first down, especially in the second half. The run gets stuffed, and now it's 2nd and 10. And then it becomes 2nd and 10. Then it's like 3rd and 7 or something like that. There were too many times where it just looked like when he didn't know what to do, there was no plan, and he had nothing to overcome it.
And I also think that the play calling was bad. Brock deserves a lot of blame, and Kyle deserves a lot of blame. Neither one of them have been great to start this year. I don't think those two are on the same page right now. Or I guess maybe they're both on the same page, but it's a bad one. You know what I mean? Because the play calls are not working. Defenses are sniffing out what's about to happen. And Brock is not getting out of those play calls. And that's what concerns me. Like, this is the time, all right, it's year 3. You know, he had the end of 1 year and then a full year. This is where I want to start seeing, all right, what's the pre-snap adjustments, Brock? You've been in here long enough. You're at the level that you should be trusted with that. Start making pre-snap adjustments. Hey, I know that this play call is not going to be good, so I'm going to change here. Change that guy to a different hot route, whatever. Slide the protection, make me do a rollout because I know the blitz is coming from the left side, so I'm going to roll out to the right. Whatever. I'm not seeing any pre-snap adjustments.
Well, Kyle doesn't. Kyle says his quarterbacks are allowed to do it, but he certainly doesn't spend any time teaching them how to do that and working on that with that. If they want to do it, it's something they have to do on their own because Kyle thinks that his system is going to be able to compensate for those things. He wants to take that off the quarterback's plate to make his quarterback's life easier. That's what he's trying to do. Whether or not that's what's actually playing out in practice is another thing. Lettuce49 says Brock is still young, still 14-0 against the rest of the NFC in the regular season. Even Brady struggled consistently against Allen's D in New Orleans. No need to worry. So this is something I thought was really interesting. Chris Sims did a really cool breakdown on his show about why Brian Flores and others have given Kyle Shanahan problems. And basically, in a nutshell, and Chris he puts it better and he does a better job of explaining it, but I'll do my best. He said, essentially, Kyle's really good at breaking down your rules and your tendencies, but coordinators like Jim Schwartz and Brian Flores and Steve Spagnuolo don't have tendencies for you to break down. They're always coming up with new stuff, and sometimes they'll just throw a play in there that may not even be the best look and might give up some yardage just to break what you think is a tendency. So that is one thing that I thought was really fascinating because it essentially disarms Kyle Shanahan's greatest strength. And also, Chris pointed out too, like Brock always goes to the line of scrimmage with 2 plays, right? You'll hear him sometimes can, which means forget that play, go to the second play. He always has 2 plays. So they may have the 2 play calls and Kyle may be like, look, if they're in this look, you've got this first play. If they do this, you got this second play. But the problem with Brian Flores and Spagnuolo and those guys is because they have all those guys at the line of scrimmage and they blitz so often, that second play almost has to become like an oh bleep play. Like, oh bleep, what if they blitz? Oh bleep, you know, if it's a 0 blitz, if they have an extra rush or something like that. So it's not like the second best play in a given situation. It's more like break glass in case of emergency, which is also kind of weakening the greatest strength of this offense and Kyle Shanahan. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think there's an easier way to put this. Kyle thrives at breaking and exploiting the tendencies of basic defense. You know, if you're in cover 2, you run this because it's a cover 2 beater. If you're in cover 0, we run this, you know, so on and so forth. What those coordinators that you mentioned do is they break and exploit Kyle Shanahan's tendencies. They know that if we run cover 2, Kyle's going to, we may not know who exactly is running them, but we know Kyle's going to have routes that go to these different areas. And so we're going to show this type of coverage pre-snap. We know they're going to be going to these areas based on that pre-snap call. And we're going to break that because it's a disguise. And we're going to go to the coverage that specifically exploits the exploit that Kyle's trying to do, because Kyle is going to constantly and always do that. Kyle doesn't break his tendencies. If he sees one thing, he runs this. If he sees another thing, he's going to run this type of play. And those three guys thrive on, we're going to disguise everything, show you one type of coverage pre-snap, and then run something completely different post-snap. And that's why I think they beat Kyle. It's because Kyle's tendencies can be exploited.
I think a lot of teams try and do that. I think that Kyle gets a lot of answers. One, because he's good at breaking down the tape. Two, because they move guys in motion all the time before the snap. That's usually is a tell by the defense to figure out what they are actually in. If you're watching on the stream right now, you'll see the tweet that Chris Sims put out. He says, Brian Flores is Kyle Shanahan's kryptonite. Unpredictable, all-out blitz can come at any time. Difficult to crack the code and attack his defensive rules because there isn't much of a pattern similar to Steve Spagnuolo and Jim Schwartz. Kyle Shanahan has not done well against those. In fact, they're all losses, unfortunately. And when you include the Super Bowl, a couple of Super Bowls, obviously some regular season games, and his teams have really only scored between like 17 and 23 points. Most of the time it's a down offensive day. And I get the tendencies of the scheme. I like it. Basically, it's like, hey, we're going to confuse you, and we're also most of the time going to blitz or have a free rusher so that your processing has to be that much faster, right? We're doing confusing stuff, and we're giving you even less time to try and figure out what it is. And that's why, as Daza says, Brock Purdy looked uncomfortable on Sunday. How much of it was Flores' defense or Kyle? Brock looks better when he's running and playing free like the second half of the Lions game. I think styles make fights, as they say a lot of times. I think that Brian Flores is just a bad matchup for both of them. Brian Flores is a good defensive coordinator. Like, let's also give Brian Flores credit and stop making everything, a shortcoming of Brock and Kyle. Brian Flores gets paid too. He's really good at his job. It's something they're going to need a plan for. They're going to have to work on it more. And I'm sure they tried, and they're going to have to keep going back to the lab. But right now, Brian Flores has got the advantage. Steve Spagnuolo has the advantage. They got to get better, period.
You know who is the inverse of Brian Flores when it comes to blitzing?
Nick Sorensen?
Yeah. The Niners are dead last in the league in blitz percentage. They have blitzed less than 9% of the time this season. It's not working. Get some pressure.
I want to get to that. That leads me perfectly into the next thing I want to talk about.
Yeah, you see what I did there?
Yeah. Thanks. It's not like we talked about it before the show or anything. Okay. One of the things that makes Kyle Shanahan so successful is he's really good at breaking the rules of a defense and dialing up plays that put his players in the best position, right? The 49ers have a schematic advantage against almost every defensive coordinator they play because of Kyle Shanahan. Regardless of who's playing for the 49ers, that is there. Right now, and the past couple of years with this defense, I think the problem is they don't have a schematical advantage on defense. They line up, play their defense, and they say, we're going to be fundamentally sound on every single play, and we're going to beat you that way.
They say we're going to out-talent you, is what they say.
Yeah, and I think that may have worked a couple of years ago when people were younger and they had different talent in there. I don't think they have the horses to do it, and I think the league has changed. I think you need to have that schematical advantage on defense. I think the days of we're a cover 3 team, come and beat us are over. I think they're getting beat, and they're getting beat on the critical downs, Lev, and they're getting beat on third down, and not just third down, third and long. They're getting beat on. It's when you should be running your most exotic stuff and your most difficult stuff to get a beat on. The 49ers are losing those battles. They've allowed opponents to convert 8 of 11 third and 7 plus this season. So third and 7 or longer, the 49ers have given up a first down 73% of the time. The rest of the NFL is at 22% of the time.
Yeah, I saw that tweet. I can't remember who tweeted it, but
Ash Dubau of the AP.
Gotcha. Josh Duval. Yeah, that was a good tweet. I am curious. I never got the time to look it up, but is there another team that's been that bad and has a percentage really high? Because notice how he doesn't say it's the worst in the league. He compares it to the league average.
I don't know.
Yeah, there could be a team, but it's kind of small sample sizes, but it does illuminate the overall problem with this defense. And the overall problem with this defense is they've been atrocious. And I know there are people out there that want to blame the offense more, especially this past week. And I argued with some of them. They think the offense deserves a ton of blame for this past week. And they were not good. But the defense was atrocious.
Except for Fred.
Except for Fred. And that's part of it. If it wasn't for Fred making two crazy only Fred Warner makes type of plays, they give up 37 points, not 23. So it's a little bit of, to me, if you're just looking at the points, that's like just looking at Brock Purdy's passing yards and saying, hey, he's having a great season. He's leading the league in passing yards. No, one stat is not enough to look at, especially when it's a stat that can be misleading in small sample sizes. And that's what points are. Points allowed and points scored are misleading when you look at a single game. You got to look at a large volume before it really matters. What the Niners are doing, one, the game against Minnesota that some people don't want to blame the defense for, was the third worst in terms of average yards per play allowed in the Kyle Shanahan era. Third worst out of 117 games. It was that bad of a game. But this is where they rank on the season in terms of yards allowed per play. Overall, it is 6.5 yards per play the opposing offense is getting. 30th in the NFL. You might think, well, maybe they're really good at one of them, and it's just one aspect of the defense that they need to get figured out. No. The run, they're averaging 5 yards per carry. That is 26th worst. The pass, oh, it's much worse than that. They're allowing 7.6 yards per pass, 31st in the NFL. They are getting beat and dominated on all sides of the field or all sides of the ball when they are on defense. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. They are flat out playing like one of the 5 worst defenses in the entire league. And this is the defense that's been in the top 5 for how many years in a row?
And to be fair, I think they brought in Brandon Staley because they wanted to have more in terms of scheme, in terms of variety, in terms of disguise. I think that was the point. But at least right now, it's early. It's only 2 weeks in. It ain't working right now for sure. And by the way, Daza says Kyle is bad against elite defensive coordinators in the NFL. He struggles with some guys. Yeah, the other guys get paid too, right? And he's got to pick up his game against those. I wanted to bring up an example. This is why I think teams have figured out how to break the 49ers defensive rules. And it was the 3rd and 7 play on that drive in the fourth quarter where the Vikings took 6 minutes and 46 seconds off the clock. This is 3rd and 7, right? So if you're not watching on the stream, I'll try and describe it. If you're watching on the stream, you can see it. Vikings come out. They got 3 wide receivers to the right. And they are stacked up almost like the bars on your cell phone. When you're checking your cell phone service, like they're at 3 different levels. So that's how they come out, and the Niners come out with 3 defensive backs there to match them. The receiver closest to the offensive line goes in motion, and he becomes the outside receiver at the snap of the ball, which causes Isaac Yiadom to go over the top. But you can see Yiadom is trying to communicate with another defensive back there. I want to say it's Mooney Ward, but I'm not sure.
I remember this play. It was Mooney Ward.
He's trying to communicate to Ward what to do. And in the meantime, they both guard the same guy, and the Naylor, or is it Powell, drops underneath, uncovered on 3rd down, and Sam Darnold throws it. He's wide open. Look how open he is right there. There's nobody within 5 yards of him. Darnold throws it and converts the 3rd down. See, that's part of the reason why I said the Vikings made life easy for Sam Darnold, because they did. That's not a difficult throw. The dude is wide open because Kevin O'Connell cracked the code on the 49ers defense, because I think the 49ers defense is too simple. It's way too easy to see what the 49ers are in, and so you can manipulate them, and that's exactly what the Vikings did. Look at that. He's wide open over there. That's on a huge must-have play, right? Got to get off the field. This is your last chance. This is when you should come out with your most exotic, most difficult, crazy-ass play, And instead, they were completely undressed, and the Vikings converted for the first down.
It's, I think, an outdated philosophy. The Niners came in and they had a great defensive line. So they said, we need to drop 7 into coverage every time because our secondary is not good enough. Well, now I think it is a case of let your corners live on an island. Trust them to hold up and send 5 and 6 guys and pass rush so that the other team doesn't have time. You know, make it to where their quarterback has to quickly diagnose what's going on and trust Mooney Ward and Lenore to hold up in coverage and stop the other team from getting wide open right away. You have a good enough secondary to do that now. So start blitzing, change it up. And oh, by the way, I know he had 2 sacks, but they were both 2 cleanup sacks where it wasn't, you know, a super quick sack. I don't think Bosa is capable of having a super fast sack. That's not, he's going to win his matchup after 3 seconds almost every single time. So if the quarterback has to hold it, he will get home. But you don't see him just, boom, he's there in 2 seconds bothering the quarterback. He's not, and I'm going to flat out say he's not TJ Watt.
No, he's not. And I've said
TJ Watt absolutely takes games over because he will have plays where he's instantly in on the quarterback. And part of that is because they blitz. And so then you have the offensive line not sliding their protections correctly and somebody goes unblocked. The Niners don't do that. So what does the offensive line get to do? They go, I know I'm blocking that guy and nobody else because there's no other guy coming through here where I might have to pass this guy off, this defensive lineman off to the guy next to me so that I can pick up the blitzer coming through this gap. There's none of that. They make it too easy on the offensive line to know, and that means they get to double team Bosa a lot. And that means Bosa is not able to be the crazy huge difference maker that he should be.
And to be fair, like I know the Vikings only scored 23 points and a lot of those were set up by short fields. And that is like, that's a real thing too. But we're talking about in critical moments of games when they need a stop, when they got to have it, they don't get it. And it's been that way for a while. And I think I agree with you. You need some disguise. You need to stop trying to get back to playing a defense that might have worked 3, 4, 5 years ago, and instead go forward and adapt your defense to the strengths of the team that you have now, the team that's out there now, the secondary that you have out there now. That's what you need to do going forward. And I also think you need to rely on the offense to be the closer of this team. You can't kick the field goal now and just say our defense will stop them. Now it's got to be, we need our offense to go on a 12-play, 6-7 minute drive. And that's what's going to shut this other team out and shut the door on the other team. The offense has to be counted on to be the closer. Because, by the way, that's where 90% of the All-Pros are anyway.
And that's part of the really bad part for the Niners and why I think a lot of their things are magnified. It's that, as you said, the defense is struggling in the big money downs. They're allowing a lot of third downs to get converted, even 3rd and longs. Meanwhile, the offense is not. They're doing the exact opposite. The offense statistically isn't that bad. They put up 32 points in week 1. They are, I think, 10th in points per game currently as an offense. And yet they are 20th on third down conversions. And they're even worse when it comes to finishing drives. Week 1, 6 field goals. Week 2, couldn't get points in the red zone. They went for it on 4th down, couldn't get it. They went for it when they were in field goal range another time, couldn't get it. They're not succeeding in the crucial game-deciding moments of the big plays on offense or on defense. Offensively, I've never seen such a large contrast. Usually, when you get to the red zone and the offense is failing to get touchdowns, they fail at all stages of the red zone. Their stats are not very good. What the Niners are having is they are absolutely dominating between the 20 and the 5. And once they get inside the 5, they're not just bad. They're not just the worst in the league. They are much, much worse than anybody else in the league. And you can look at the rushing specifically to show this. Jordan Mason, within the 5-yard line, has 2 rushes for -3 yards. The only person worse than him is Deebo Samuel, who has 2 rushes for -7 yards. However, Jordan Mason, outside of that, if you want to go between the 20 and the 5-yard line, he's got 8 rushes for 52 yards, best in the league. And that's with an 11-yard touchdown being called back due to holding on one of them. If you go even 20 to 10, like you don't even go all the way to the 5, he's got 5 rushes for 36 yards. That's better than 7 yards per rush. He's dominating once they get in the red zone, but this offensive line is getting their butts whooped once it goes into a goal line situation. And that's where, if I'm looking at the Niners to improve rapidly on offense, it's whatever they're doing in goal line formation, change it, because it's not working.
To be fair, red zone scoring is down across the league, and scoring in general is down across the league. Defenses are kicking the hell out of offenses early in the year. But to your point, the 49ers certainly are part of the reason that that's the case, because they have floundered in those situations. Herbie Holland, I just want to say this because he's had a super chat up here for a while. Herbie says, Brandon Staley giving up 63 to the Raiders. That Brandon Staley. Yes, like you can say Brandon Staley stinks or whatever. You can't say he doesn't vary his defense. He comes out in different fronts, different formations. He does do that. So even if you don't think he's a good coordinator, he does provide more variance in his defense than certainly the 49ers have. They actually ran dime coverage, Levin, in week 2. They didn't run a single snap of dime all year last year. They ran dime this year, which I think is a good thing, right? You're down a linebacker. You're down Dre Greenlaw. So instead of putting Devondre Campbell out there or some other scrub, and by the way, the 49ers linebackers outside of Fred Warner have not looked good. Instead of
Winters has been practicing, though. That's my hope.
Yes, so maybe that might be better. But instead of trying to force that, they went to the strength of the team, which is the defensive back. So they added an extra defensive back. That's good. More of that, please. Please continue to do that, unless D. Winters, all of a sudden becomes a real thing, which I don't think is going to happen right away. But that's an example of playing into your strength and switching it up. So I hope they do that, and I hope they do more of it, because I think it's smart.
Yeah, so that is the big thing I want to see out of the defense, like the blitzing. Blitzing goes right into that. If you're blitzing this guy over here, and then you're doing a corner blitz, and you're bringing a safety blitz down, you're confusing the offense, and you're also getting pressure fast, so that it's not a case of, well, we're going to sit back and the quarterback will get 3 seconds to figure things out. And after 3 seconds, well, Nick Bosa will be there. If they don't, this is where I'm at. The offense, I think, has little things that are pretty obvious to get better at, and suddenly they're really, really good. The defense has been so bad on so many things that there's too many things to suddenly be like, oh, well, they just need to fix this one thing, and then they're back to being a top 5 defense. And that's my concern, is that they're very far away from being what they should be.
Romelo Bell, says, stop. The Chargers got rid of him. What does that make him? Well, just because he got fired doesn't mean he's not a good coach. Brian Flores got fired by the Dolphins.
Andy Reid got fired.
What do we? No, you can't. Those two things do not equate. Every coach Jim Harbaugh got fired. Is he not a good coach? I mean, come on. That can't be your source of evaluation, because a lot of guys get fired that are really good coaches. So just going to throw that out there. We haven't touched on this yet, and it's a good question from Brad's Adams. Says, is it going to help to get Talanoa Hufanga back? I could not be more excited to get Talanoa Hufanga back. I love him. I have an irrational love for him. I forget most of his bad plays, and I only remember the good ones. I fully admit it. But here's the thing I like about him, Levin, and it goes to kind of what we've been talking about for a lot of this show. He's got a little unpredictableness to him, right? Mm-hmm. He's someone that thrives going outside the structure of a particular play or scheme. He's got he's just a sense of randomness in here. He's like a chaos bringer. I like that. I think this defense needs more of that. And so I hope that he's, back to his level. He probably won't be. It's probably unfair to expect that right away, but I'm so glad that he's back.
It's funny how a week can change things. Prior to the season, I was saying, I think there's a decent chance that Hufanga doesn't have a job when he comes back, that they'll stick with Mustafa. And I can tell you this, they're not sticking with Odom. Odom was terrible last week. I did like what I saw out of Mustafa, but I would guess Hufanga is just going to go right back into that role, and Mustafa will just be he'll be the rookie that gives Jair Brown and Hufanga breathers when there's been, maybe a couple deep shots in a row where they've had to sprint down the field for 50 yards. I am excited for Hufanga to be back. And like I said, 2 weeks ago, I was saying, I don't know that he's going to have a job when he gets back.
Well, turns out we can't wait. Herbie Holland says, can someone tell me where Leonard Floyd was? Did he play? Is he going to be a factor? I thought he was supposed to help Bosa in the pass rush. There were a couple plays where he absolutely got punked out there. Yeah. Like one of them where he tries to rush the passer, and I don't know if it was Darisaw or somebody, like just takes him off his feet and just blasts him backwards. I'm not saying that every snap was like that, but man, there were a couple plays where he looked bad.
Floyd has had a good career, but I can't help but when I watch him think, boy, what he really would have thrived in is that Vic Fangio 3-4 as the pass rusher. The Ahmad Brooks role. That's where I think he's really a linebacker. He could have been a great linebacker who pass rushes, a Micah Parsons, for instance. In that role, I think that's where Floyd would have been really good, much better career. Not that he's had a bad career, and not that I'm saying I'm out on him this year, but he has been bad. And what he was bad at this past week are the things that we know he's kind of bad at. He is somebody that has really bad reps. He just somebody that usually makes a big play once a game.
So if you're watching on the stream right now, I said boom like that because we're showing a couple of plays where he absolutely just gets blasted backwards. I think that Leonard Floyd is a lot like how you described Bosa, which is he wins more through relentless effort than quick beat you right off the line of scrimmage type moves. Even the games where he had a couple sacks, it was more kind of right place, right time, which is fine, which can work, by the way, if the Niners can stop the opposing quarterback from throwing the ball so damn fast. And so, they're not playing complimentary football. Lettuce 49. This is a mean comment. Rob got fired too, and he ain't bad. I wasn't fired. I was laid off. There's a difference. Jerks. Some mean people. I mean, he paid $2 to say the comment. So, thanks, I guess. But also, when you pay money to rip me.
He said you ain't bad, for one. I don't think that's mean.
That's right up there if you're not wrong.
I hate to break it to you. Laid off and fired are the same thing. One's just a nicer way.
No. Fired is like a penalty for doing something wrong. Laid off
not always.
We don't need you anymore. Or want you anymore. When you get fired, it's because you've done something to deserve it.
I mean, this is a case 100% of they eliminated your position.
Well, they eliminated every podcast they had.
It wasn't personal to you. You had literally, the month it happened, taken over the top spot for the most listens of any podcast network that they had.
Right.
So, it wasn't performance based. It was they eliminated your position because they eliminated everybody with that position for any of their websites. But like I said, it wasn't personal, but laid off and fired, it's same result. Put it that way.
Same result, yes, but yeah. Lee Ving says laid off for shareholder profit. Laid off and fired is the same result, but that's like saying getting cut and retiring is the same result. Technically, yeah, they're both off the team, but little different reason there. I saw this comment from Bill Smith, who said, I think we're witnessing the cost of all those traded draft picks. People focus on that, and I get it. But Vish brought this point up on Monday, and I think it's a really good one. Yes, not having those picks hurts. But you know what else hurts a lot more and could have mitigated those picks is missing on Javon Kinlaw, missing on Drake Jackson, missing on multiple third down running backs and Danny Gray. The guys that they have picked, they have whiffed on. And so it's the combination of whiffing on those guys and not having more lottery tickets is why the roster is in the current state that it's in. It's not just that they didn't have those picks. It's also that the guys that they did choose to pick did not work out. So many of them. And that's what really has hurt.
It's if you miss out on a third, fourth, fifth pick, I don't care. You can miss out on those. It's the fact that they miss out on their high draft picks on so many of them, and they traded others away to have less chances at them. It's there is multiple quality starters, maybe not stars. I'm not saying stars because you shouldn't expect a star out of every single first round draft pick, but there's multiple quality starters missing on this team because they have whiffed on so many first round picks and traded so many of them.
Right. It's the combination of both. By the way, your wife just came in with the comment of the day.
Oh, I didn't even notice where.
It says, Rob likes to live life on the edge wearing a plaid shirt on a Thursday. And then she puts the emoji with the cowboy hat on. For anyone that doesn't know, Woody. Levin claims I look like Woody when I wear a plaid shirt. So thank you very much, Levin.
You wore a yellow plaid shirt one time, and it was actually a commenter. I don't even remember which commenter it was. Said you look like Woody. And I was like, dang, he does. And I've not let it die in 2 years.
No, he keeps photoshopping things and putting my face on Woody.
Then a custom emoji.
Let us 49 says, I'm kidding.
Get that emoji in this. Let members have that emoji I created, and you might get some members out of it.
You got to send that to me. I will. Daza0187 says, imagine if Kinlaw was Wirfs. Yeah, and like you can play that game with every pick that misses, right? Imagine they just took this guy. But I understand the thing.
I don't think Kinlaw could be worse. You see what I did there?
Wirfs. Okay. Herbie says, we still love you, Stats, but laid off and fired are the same thing. Trust me, I'm a union rep, same thing. He's
dropping the mic with the union rep thing.
Has anyone ever done nothing wrong and gotten fired? No. Fired is a penalty for something. Laid off is totally out of your control.
I think this is a little personal for you. I think you think fired is automatically, hey, that guy screwed up, so we got rid of him. But that's not what it actually means.
What does it actually mean?
It means you no longer have a job. That's what it means.
That's the result. That's the result of it. The result is the same. I get it. Like, look, it doesn't matter. I'm in a better place now, right? I have my own company. We're still here. We're still doing shows. It's fine. But I think that there's a difference. That's all.
It's your island now. My island.
Island. That's the same comment. Sorry, Herbie. I appreciate all your super chats, Herbie, but I just wish you were on my side. Is really
I really appreciate them.
All right. So we didn't really talk too much about the Rams. We're already an hour in.
There's not much to talk about. Hey, the Rams, you won't recognize them outside of Stafford on Sunday. That's what the Rams are.
People want to see the 49ers dominate on Sunday because the Rams are so hurt. They want to see the 49ers kick the tar.
It's a home game.
And it's essentially a home game in LA. I don't really care. Like, yeah, I'll be more worried if the 49ers win like 13-10, right? Like, of course, you want to see them go out and put up 30. But like, I'm still in survive and advance mode for the whole season. That is
just
my...
get a win and get the vibes back because I really don't like the vibes currently. And if they lose this game, like I said, I think it all craters.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a bleep storm.
I'll put it this way: if they lose this game, I will be in San Francisco next week to line Kyle Shanahan out. I will let him know what's up. I'll be about 19 rows behind him during the game, and I'll yell at him, "Hey, what are you doing?" You know, I'll teach him some things. Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he'll have his notepad out. Game plan.
Hey, Rich Madrid said that.
Gameplan.exe on Twitch says, as a person who's fired employees and also had to lay people off, they are vastly different, even from this side of the desk. So there you go.
Nah, he's not a union rep.
Eric says, if you got severance, then you were laid off. Otherwise, nah.
I don't remember if you got severance or not, actually.
Oh, I got severance. Thank God. Otherwise, I would have been, oh, man. I was already breaking down enough as it was. I don't need to have any more of that. All right.
I would have owned you because you would have taken me up on loaning you money, and I would have owned you for life. Loan sharked you.
I would never have done that because I couldn't live with myself if you loan sharked me. But I did appreciate that offer at the time, and I still do. So thank you for that. That's going to do it for this edition of the show, I think, unless there's anything else you wanted to get to.
No, we're good. There's really nothing. Like this game was not worth diving into what are the Rams doing? Because guess what? What they did last week, they're certainly not going to do again this week. And we don't know what to expect out of their offense because they don't have Cooper nor Puka. So we don't know what to expect.
They have 4 offensive linemen on injured reserve. They have 3 corners on injured reserve. They have a safety that's either on injured reserve or I know he's not going to play. Like it is 2020 49ers territory with the Rams right now. And frankly, as somebody that has had to watch them have incredible health for most of Sean McVay's tenure, as he said about the absence of Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel this week, I ain't sad about it. Okay. I'll
put it this way. Other than Kyron Williams, I have a hard time thinking of like, all right, who else is on that offense? Who's on their defense? I have a hard time coming up with names.
Right, because they're all out. Your wife says if the Niners win, then Levin has to say Rob is right on the show.
No, he won't be right because if they win, he picked the Rams to win.
It's true. Herbie Holland says they lost to Sam Darnold and he lost Jefferson and Stafford is a way better quarterback. Look out. Well, they lost Justin Jefferson for like 2 possessions. He also caught a 97-yard touchdown in the game. Let's forget things here. Anyway.
Sam Darnold, that is a good comparison. Sam Darnold is the poor man Stafford. He's going to give you a turnover or 2 every game, but he's also going to make a really good play or 2 a game. It's just that Stafford's going to make 4 or 5 really good plays a game.
Yeah, the Niners will have opportunities to take the ball away. Absolutely. He does it every game, Stafford, particularly against the Niners. I can't remember a game where I was like, damn, Matthew Stafford was flawless today. Like, no, he always throws up a couple ducks. They'll be there. And I'm sure he probably feels pressure to do more now because he's the only guy they have left, unfortunately. And hopefully the Niners can capitalize on it. They need a get-right game. There have been a lot of times in the Shanahan era where the get-right game is the Rams, where like things have been kind of shaky and then all of a sudden they play the Rams and they kick ass and then you feel good again. But most of those times it's because Deebo Samuel goes absolutely nuts or Christian McCaffrey comes over and runs a touchdown, throws a touchdown, and catches a touchdown. It's going to be different this week. Let's see if the 49ers can overcome. Join us after the game on Sunday. I'll be here for the instant reaction show. Levin won't be because he's a huge jerk. But
no, this is the one that I can make.
Oh, it is? I thought you said you weren't coming.
No, this is the one. I'm off this weekend. This is the one I can make. And then next week,
right,
I'm at the game I can't make. And the week after that, I'm still on vacation. I'll be in Olympic National Park where I am just assuming there won't be good enough Wi-Fi for me to stream something.
Just get on top of a pine tree, bring your laptop and figure it out. We can do it here. Aaron Rodriguez says, Levin, we need you back on the Instant Reaction Lives. Rob isn't cutting it. What the hell? Everybody's unhappy. You guys are a bunch of jerks. Just kidding, Rob. You're not bad. Oh, well, everybody's going the non-compliment route.
What's worse, being told you're not bad or somebody saying you're not wrong?
They're the same. It's the same thing. Okay. Same church, different pew. All right. It's going to do it for this edition of the show. Please rate, review, and follow the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Thank you. We've gotten a couple of good reviews that I should have read at the top of the show. Anonymous Rex gave us 5 stars and said, I needed something to fall back on when Better Rivals ended. I enjoy the variety of contributors brought together through this collaboration. My biggest wish is that you bring back Oscar Aparicio regularly. His episode with Stats was exceptional. Thank you. I love Oscar. He's been really good to me. Maybe I should see if he wants to come back on the show lately. I can do that. But we've gotten a couple good reviews. So thank you, everybody. Really appreciate that. It helps us with the getting up the charts, which is something we could really use. Also, I think YouTube is starting this thing called hyping, which I don't know if they've actually launched it yet, but they're going to launch it. You can like hype a video and it's for accounts with less than 500,000 subscribers, which is certainly us by a good margin. But if you hype the video, it like boosts it to other people and like helps it get out there, kind of pushes it out there on YouTube. So if you see that feature come up and you're not sure what it is, it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't mess with your algorithm. So it won't like screw up, whatever YouTube suggests to you. So if you see something that says like hype this video, please click it because I think it could make a big difference for us.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had not heard about that, but I mean, if anybody's a hype man, it's this guy right here. That's what I excel at, is hyping things for sure.
Oh, yeah. John says we should get Oscar to replace Levin. I'd consider it. Wedge says
that doesn't even say he's not bad, but he's no Oscar or anything like that.
Wedge says I offer my services to sit in for the human wet blanket. Maybe I should do a fan instant reaction show one of the weeks that you're off. You just let people hop in and come
You
on.
go for it. Those always make me nervous because you
I
don't
know.
know.
I know. And people, you could say something that could get my channel in a lot of trouble. So I'm always very hesitant to do that because there's no dump button. That's why radio stations have a dump button. There's a delay from when people say stuff to when it goes on the air. You can hit the dump button and then it never reaches it. I don't have that here. It's live, baby. So I don't know. Maybe I will, maybe I won't.
You got me to dump on.
And
That's your dump.
Thank you for that. I'll cut that up and make it live forever. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the game on Sunday. Join us both afterwards for the instant reaction show. Go damn Niners.